Hey guys, welcome. Missed you guys. How's everybody doing today? All right. So this show was long overdue. We weren't live last week, so I'm glad to be back, and I hope you guys are raring to go. We have a lot of cool things to talk about on the list today. Welcome everybody. As you know, we're addicted to gear here. So everybody that's presently here and gonna trickle in today, probably is suffering from the same affliction, which is gear addiction, which is not necessarily a bad thing. First of all, I want to know if you guys can hear me okay. I had a little issue just before starting the show. I hate when everything's good and then one little stupid piece that's not working properly. Today it was this guy. Had me freaking out because I didn't know why I wasn't getting any sound. So sometimes it's a stupidity, like a little input jack adapter. I don't know why this thing stopped working, but it's it's not good anymore. So I'm gonna have to chuck that one out. Luckily I had a spare. Otherwise it would have wreaked havoc on the show. So welcome everybody. I hope you guys are all in good shape. I'm we have a poll question up today. I'm sorry I was late with that. I just put that up this morning. But if you're trickling in and you got a couple of minutes, just maybe answer that poll question, and that would be cool. That ties into some of the subjects that we're talking about today. So welcome everybody, new and old. And when I say old, I mean that in the best way. People that have been tuning in for a while. The show's been going on for quite a long time, 276 shows in, and we're already close to the holidays. Holidays are around the corner. We have Black Friday. All the Black Friday deals have already started, and I wanted to talk about that with you guys also today. Wanted to see if you guys have been up to no good in the last week or so since I've been gone, and see if you guys have already perhaps taken advantage of some deals out there. And I'll give you some updates on my end as well. So welcome everybody. If you guys are new, please don't be shy, okay? Pipe in. A lot of you guys are regulars, but some of you might be new. And if you have any questions, a little question mark, okay? Before the question, so I can spot it right away. So there was a question already here. Do you like the Synergy amps? Only drawback to me is buying all those modules at $400 a pop. Yeah, I know what you're saying. From what I've seen, and I haven't had an opportunity to try one myself, they seem like a really cool option if you're the type of person that likes to use amps for most of your sounds, and you don't necessarily, let's say you don't have the budget to purchase 5 or 6 different amps. I know $400 a pop for those modules seems like a lot, but compared to spending, some of those modules are very expensive emulations, right? Of a very expensive amps is what I meant to say. So it's $400 as opposed to a couple of $1,000 seems like a pretty good deal to me if that's the route that you want to take. And I understand the type of people that would probably want to would benefit from an amp like that. You buy an amp like that, you put in 3 or 4 different modules of your choice, and you're good to go. So I don't really see that many drawbacks. The only thing I could imagine that could be a drawback would be, hold on a second, would be if the sounds would not be as good, as you expect them to be. So give me a second here. I'm just going to do this. All right. So now I've been playing this guitar today. There wasn't that much of guessing going on this morning. This is the Harley Benton guitar. And I take this guitar and I pick it up every once in a while, and it really is a good guitar. If anybody's into a Charvel style guitar, this is a good option because you have all of the same appointments as you would normally get on a Charvel. Really nice tops too. You have some nice colors, nice fretboard, and it hasn't disappointed me. It really works well, even with the Floyd. A lot of people, including myself, sometimes have a love-hate relationship with Floyd Rose bridges. And this one, and I can't really tell which model it is. I'm sure it's still a budget OEM Floyd, but it actually holds tuning quite well, and it hasn't let me down. So I haven't gotten any frustrations out of it so far. And today I was just playing around with a new more multi-effects unit, the 150 Pro, which is nice. I'm playing with a Carol Ann overdrive patch. I know you guys sometimes don't like to hear the strings because you pick it up on my lapel mic, but I can't help it. It's a pretty nice unit, I gotta say. I don't know if there's a clean version of this sound. Let me see. There must be. That's not. There it is. So here you can hear a little bit. I'll put a little louder because you can't really. Pretty nice. All right. So let's see who's here. I'd like to say good morning to everybody. And since YouTube has kind of changed all of the names, they're slowly changing over. I'm going to try and recognize everybody here. We have Wayne, we have Mark, we have Mean Gene Callie. And Mean Gene says EGLP 610 electric guitar, 24.75 scale, roasted mahogany body and neck. Then he says Art Tones HHC2 pickups, stainless steel frets, out of 5 stars, 4.3 out of 5 stars, $209.50. Usually it's $230 and $45 on Amazon. I have a bunch of those Art guitars, and I gotta say I can vouch that it's a good buy. For $200, you won't be disappointed. I bought a couple of them actually. The prices have gone up over time, so if you can grab them for a good deal on Black Friday, go ahead and grab them. They're really good, and you can actually mod them all day long and make them even better. Vinny's here. Paul's here. Hey, Paul. Nice to see you, man. Let's see. Zach Thong, good morning. And I'm just checking to see if there's any other questions here. Rico's here. Davis Music is here. Mark is here. One reason I avoid active pickups is because the stereo jacks always fail at the worst time, and I have no reason anyways to use actives. The stereo jacks fail. I really haven't I haven't ever become a fan of active pickups. I don't really need active pickups myself either. I kind of avoid them because I don't know. I find my pickups are fine the way they are. I haven't ever felt that I needed to go and go active. So Mark says, working on my solo acoustic gigging board this morning. What are you trying to do to it, Mark? Make it lighter? Make it heavier? What are you swapping out? I'm curious. I got a gig this afternoon. Well, not really a gig, a rehearsal this evening actually, and I'm thinking about maybe going through my my pedal board as well and maybe lightening things up a little bit too. I don't. It's down there, as you can see it. And there's a whole bunch of stuff I've been experimenting with on that one. And I have another one which is a lighter version over there, which I've been trying to lighten things up with mini pedals when I don't feel like carrying the full unit, the full pedal board. But after I plugged in the more, I figured maybe, you know what I'll do? I'll maybe just take the more and plug in right into the to the mixer. Maybe go that way. That way I don't have to carry anything except my guitar and the more unit. Maybe that could work. I only plugged it in today, so I'm not familiar with it yet, totally. But it seems pretty easy, so I don't think I'm going to have an issue once I find, you know, a couple of little things. The most important thing when you're using a multi-effects unit, if you're going to a gig or something like that, is finding out where the global settings are. Because the global EQ is going to be your best friend when you first walk in that room and try and balance things out. All right, who else is here? Let me scroll a little bit further here. Tonefish, good morning. Profile Productions, good morning. Steven, DMAC, Wayne, we said hi to Wayne, I think, already. Presley, Shane, who else? Another comment. Angus says, I'm not a fan of locking trems, but I tried out this model Harley Benton at a Guitar Center a couple of years ago. I almost bought it. The only thing that changed my mind was the neck, not the right shape. A couple of years ago, do you remember the model of that one? Mazzetti says, what's up, rockers? And Shane says, Jimmy Page Telecaster looking awesome. Oh yeah, well, I wanted to talk about that because as I mentioned earlier on, for the guys that have been tuning in regularly, there is a project that I've been kind of saving for winter. So winter's here, guys. There's snow on the ground and it hasn't melted. So I'm getting psyched up for it. And that was the project that I was going to be working on this winter, the Jimmy Page Dragon Telecaster. And I just dug out all of the parts that I'm going to be we're using in this project. I kind of put everything in a bin here. Whole bunch of good stuff that are going to end up going into that project. So I wanted to kind of take things out and find where I had put them because I squirrel things away and then have trouble finding them sometimes. I have the holographic vinyl that I'm going to be needing for the pickguard. This is kind of the hardest thing I needed to find for the project, but it's going to go in there. I have the transparent pickguard. I have most of the parts that I need for that build. However, there's still going to be quite a bit of work to do on it. Because the body that was used for this guitar is not a standard Fender body. So there's going to be some modifications that are going to have to be done to it for it to work properly. Nothing big, but you know, it's always tricky sometimes. On this body, there was no holes drilled through the body for the string ferrules on the other side. This is a what they call a hardtail. So I'm going to be drilling those holes and putting in the ferrules and stuff like that. And it won't be a one-to-one Dragon Telecaster reproduction by any means. It'll be sort of my version of it. But it does have sentimental value because I told the story already, I think, if you guys remember. My nephew did the artwork on it. This is not a decal or anything. It's actually hand painted. So he had done this quite a while ago and was nice enough to donate it. And I kind of promised I was going to put it together, which I will. And it's going to be cool. I think it's going to be a really fun project to put together. I dropped on the hardware and stuff like that already just to see what it would look like, and it really looks like a cool. It's going to be a cool Telecaster. So as you can see, there's no string holes drilled. So I'll have to do that. The tricky part is not like messing up the guitar too much when you're doing that kind of stuff. If you're working on a raw body that hasn't been painted or anything like that, it's a lot easier. But when the guitar's already painted, you got to be careful. But it's doable, and I think I'm going to be, I'll probably be videotaping parts of it just to share it with you guys, and you can, for those of you that are interested in building your own guitars and stuff like that. It's funny because I was looking at some of that information earlier today in terms of the Jimmy Page Dragon and all that. There's a lot of misconceptions about that guitar. And a lot of people don't really know the history behind it, but it's a cool story because the whole Dragon Telecaster thing has a really nice history behind it, and a lot of people don't know that that guitar was used extensively on the Led Zeppelin 1968 Led Zeppelin 1 album. It was the main guitar that Jimmy Page used on a lot of songs like Good Times, Bad Times, Dazed and Confused. And it's claimed that most of the entire Stairway to Heaven solo was actually the Telecaster. A lot of people have the misconception that it was a Les Paul, but it's been debunked that it was actually the Telecaster. And the guitar came from Jeff Beck. Jeff gave it to Jimmy back in 1966 at the beginning of when Jeff joined the Yardbirds. It was kind of a thank you to Jimmy for recommending him to the Yardbirds. And it started off life, it was just a stock I think it was a 1959 Fender Telecaster with a blonde finish. And Jimmy, I guess, sanded down the body for whatever reason. I guess he didn't like the blonde. And then he introduced those, the little mirrors that he put on there in the late 60s. They look like just reflectors. I think there was 7 or 8 mirrors on it, which I never really liked. I never liked that style, that particular version of it. I know Fender made both versions, the Dragon as well as the mirrored version, and they were selling them for a while. I never was a fan of the mirrored ones. That was before he actually painted it. And then a lot of people maybe don't know that the mirrored Telecaster that Jimmy had is the same guitar. It's the same Dragon Telecaster, just that he painted it in 67. So it's pretty cool. I like the story. I don't know if Fender's still selling those custom shop versions yet. If it was, I think it was a limited run, so they might not be selling them anymore. Does anybody out there have one of those, just out of curiosity? Anyone buy one of those Fender versions, maybe? D-Mac has a question. He says, anyone encounter worse tuning on a Strat with a whammy bar installed versus when it's not? This seems to be the case for me lately. I'm not really using the bar much at all, but tuning stability is worse. Okay, so let me understand this. You're basically saying when you use the whammy bar, or just when it's installed and you're not using it? It's normal that, the whammy bar is going to throw the guitar out of tune more when you're using it. The key is really to have everything balanced out. And I don't know if you've already looked at all that, D-Mac, but with a Strat, just because the the trem is simpler than say, something like a Floyd, for example. It's still a floating system, right? It's still floating above the body. So you have to make sure that your system is adjusted properly. The top of the bridge has to be parallel with the top of your body. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's twisted and it's kind of facing towards the neck or pulling back. That means it's not really in balance. So the more the actual tremolo is straight and in balance, the less issues you're going to have with tuning. You're still probably going to have some issues. You also have to look at the nut, making sure that the nut on your guitar, the slots are cut wide enough so it allows the strings to easily slide through. Because often what ends up happening, and this is why the guitar goes out of tune, sometimes the nut is not slotted properly, or maybe it is, but people will change the gauge of their strings. So what ends up happening is all of a sudden you go up a gauge or something like that, the strings are wider and they bind at the nut. So even though everything is balanced at the bridge side, it'll still bind up sometimes, and when you let go of the trem arm, things don't go back to pitch completely. So it could stay a little bit flat or go sharp or stuff like that. So I would look at that first, those are common things, but those are things that are easy to fix. So, nothing too worrisome there. All right. Winter is coming, Shane. Yeah, absolutely. And I can't stand winter, guys. I can't stand it. I go into hibernation mode in wintertime. So Angus says it was very similar to the Harley you have here, except a blonde wood color. It looked great and was solidly built. Yeah, I haven't really found, from the guitars that I've tried from Harley Benton, I haven't really found a dud. Most of them are nice guitars, at a very reasonable price. So how many of you actually purchased anything, already for Black Friday, or maybe you're getting psyched up for Christmas? Maybe you have something on your Christmas list. What have you got? What are you guys searching for? Shane says, I'd like winter in Japan. I probably would. I guess it doesn't get that cold over there, right, Shane? Does it just get humid? Is it just humidity, or wondering? Music and Gear says, can't stay today, too far behind on work. Hope everyone has a great day. Hope next weekend I can stay longer. No worries, man. Hey, you'll still be able to watch the rerun later on. It's all good. Mean Gene says, Dragon Telecaster copies are available by Firefly. I haven't really seen too many of those. Firefly guitars are not easy to get in Canada. I think they're common in the States, but not so much in Canada. All right. Not too bad and not so humid in winter. Oh, it's good. Do you still get snow, Shane? Probably rarely, right? Well, in a couple of weeks, not that far away, I'll be going to Vegas, so it'll be warmer there. Won't be long, only for about a week or so, but that'll give me a little break from the winter. Although it's not going to be entirely like a vacation or anything like that. So I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the deals that I've spotted. I think maybe some of you would like to know about these deals. So there's a couple of interesting ones. I spotted that Fender is offering 30% off on some guitars, and these deals are still active right now. You can get them as we speak. There's a limited edition Player 2 Stratocaster that is normally selling for $839 US. And now you can get it for 30% off. So you can get it for $587. I don't know how many colors are available. I've seen one that was forest green, which is not my favorite, but there might be other colors available. So you can maybe check out those. Now, I think you can buy those directly from Fender or Sweetwater. Just checking out some of the links here. I just wanted to see what is still available. Sometimes those deals come and go real quick, so you got to move fast, you know? For those of you that are maybe looking at a Paul Reed Smith, I spotted one also, another, was one deal for the SENF 53. That one was quite a discounted offer. Let me just see if it's still there. I don't want to get your hopes up. Yeah, so that one was, which is normally $979, now is only $779 at Sweetwater, if you're interested in that particular model. I'm not a huge fan of that model, but some of you might be interested in it because it does have the P90s. Or I don't know actually if they're even P90s. I think they're PRS versions of P90s. I don't know. They're very they look like humbuckers, but they're a lot smaller on that particular model. I don't know if you guys know what I'm talking about. So Wayne says he picked up a 35 Epiphone Electar, one of the first purpose-built electric guitars. After I refretted it and restrung it, I was grinning from ear to ear when it made noise. Now it's my number one. Okay, so you worked on it. You had to do a refret on it. A refret is not a small task, Wayne. If you know how to refret guitars, it means you know your way around them pretty well. Was that a big challenge? Why did it need a refret? It was just an older used guitar, I guess. Yeah, refrets are not for the faint of heart. You have to know what you're doing. There's quite a bit of work involved, and you can easily mess it up if you don't know what you're doing there. Casey Lee says he got an ESP LTD Phoenix Deluxe, modern take on a Firebird. My wife and I made the deal. That is my Christmas present, but I know she'll get me something anyway, so win-win. So you're getting two gifts for the price of one. Well, you're gonna have to do something very special for your wife. That's cool, man. Congratulations on that, guys. For both of you guys, I think you guys are you're starting the vacation period well with those deals. I think maybe a lot of other viewers here probably have some stuff lined up, but it hasn't come in yet. What else? There's been a lot of Paul McCartney came to town recently, and I didn't go to the show this year. I've been to Paul McCartney concerts before, and I think I got him just as, he was still doing really, really well in terms of his vocals and show and everything. It was quite a few years ago, and I did watch some of the YouTube videos of the show here in Montreal. And you can tell that his voice was struggling at times. Sometimes he was a little bit flat on some of the higher pitched songs and stuff. But I mean, give the guy a break. He's in his 80s, and he's still going strong. So can't really fault him for that. Wayne says 90 years old and it was a pleasure to do. I'd love to see some photos of that, Wayne. Maybe you can throw some my way. Presley says my wife bought me a paraglider for my birthday. Maybe she wants me dead. Wow, man. Dude, that's a cool gift, but definitely not for me. You wouldn't catch me dead in one of those. So I don't know. How long is this a new hobby? I hope it's not. I hope you have lots of experience paragliding before you take it for a spin. Yeah. I can think of a couple of other gifts that would be less dangerous, let's say. One thing I saw, and I misplaced the link, and I thought that was a cool deal. I'm gonna see if I can try to find it. Oh man, I hate when I. Let me see if I can find that. I was saving it for you guys. Where is it? It was a cool deal on lessons, actually. And I thought that would be cool to share with you guys, but I can't find the link. I know it's here somewhere. I'll find it. Other things that I've been looking at in terms of pedals and effects and all that kind of stuff. There was the Line 6, the DL4 Mark II, the 25th anniversary version of those units. A lot of people like those. You can get them for $179 now. They were $300, so you're saving about 40% on that as well. You can find them all over the place right now, but I think that was a good deal. I can't seem to find the other one. I believe it was here. Let me just try and find it here. Yeah. Guitar Tricks, the website where you can actually do lessons, if ever you're interested, is having a really deep discount sale. Normally, they have a year, like full access yearly package is $899. That's $899. And right now you can get it for $99. I think that's a pretty good deal. If anybody is looking at maybe getting some cheap lessons online, you get a whole bunch of stuff. I just happened to find this deal here. You can get your annual full access, so 12 months of full access, which normally is $359, and you get that for $99. Then you get a custom lesson plan, which is normally $99, which is free. You also get what they call Premium Boot Camp, which is access to their premium courses, boot camp courses, which is $79. That's also free. Then you get the 100 Lick series. That's also $79, which is free. And you also get the Ultimate Beginner Guide, the ebook free. You get the soloing guide free. You get a guitar setup, which is free as well. And you also get a bonus gift, which is worth $196 apparently. So you're getting all of that for $99. That's not bad. That's a pretty good deal. So I took note of that and I wanted to share that with you guys just in case. Hey Cushman, what's happening, dude? So Casey's asking, who of the past singers still had a great voice? I vote for Robin Zander, he says. You know, there's not that many people that still have great voices after they get into their 70s or 80s. At least I haven't seen that many. All the old rockers that I used to listen to when I was a teenager, I mean, they're still doing it, but, you know, they don't sound like they used to. It's kind of hard after all those years. Your voice is an instrument after all, and it does, you know, it takes abuse. There's a lot of wear and tear, right? Mean Gene says, I don't mind anyone giving me riffs, but I don't want anyone giving me licks. All right. I get that. So other than the deals that are going on right now, there was some interesting, there was another interesting topic I wanted to cover. And I just made a note of that. Let me just pull that up here. There's a couple of other cool things that have. Worm Audio, I don't know, you guys know the brand. They make cool pedals. They just came out with yet another Tube Screamer clone. And I thought the days of the Tube Screamer clones were coming to an end, but apparently not. The last time I did my show, I did mention that the original creator of the Tube Screamer also came out with a new version of the classic under his name. You know, it's not made by Boss or anything like that, or Ibanez, because Boss has their version. Ibanez had the original version. Maxon has a version. Everybody has a version. And right now, Worm Audio just came out with another one. So how many of you don't have Tube Screamers here at the moment? I don't have one right now. I've had one in the past, but not anymore. I don't really dig the Tube Screamer, to be honest with you. I kind of got over that a long time ago, but some people still like it. I guess there's a demand because they're still making them. This one apparently has a couple of extra useful features. Has a voltage booster, has a mix control, has a buffered bypass to shape the tone for, you know, both humbuckers and single coils and all that kind of stuff. So you have all kinds of additional functions, you know, useful extras to basically shape your sound a little bit better, which maybe would, you know, be better for people that don't really like Tube Screamers all that much. I think they made this one more so it plays well with single coils and humbuckers, because I felt that the Tube Screamer did a little better with single coils than it did with humbuckers. And best of all, it's not that expensive. It's only $149 because usually these clone pedals, you know, they kind of fall into like that boutique territory, and they end up costing a lot more than the originals. So this one is reasonably priced. So if anybody's interested in that, in getting another Tube Screamer, there you go. Marcia and Marie says, I just ordered a DJI Pocket 3 camera creator combo, $300 off. That's pretty cool. The DJI stuff is pretty good. I think they were having some issues. I don't know if you heard about that, but DJI apparently in the United States were getting blocked due to the fact that they're made in China. And there was some issues regarding, you know, security, privacy, all that kind of stuff. And I heard rumors that they were kind of getting blocked, and they would no longer be able to be sold in the US. So I don't know if that's still true or not. But they make really good products, that's for sure. Rico says, Tony, this is my third winter in a row. When you coming to visit Arizona would be super cool. I would love to go to Arizona, man. I keep on telling you that, Rico. I don't know. My wife is hinting that she wants to visit Memphis instead. I don't know why. Memphis is cool. There's a lot of cool guitar related stuff happening there, but I don't know. Not sure if that's a better choice or not. I think she wanted to do Memphis and Texas for whatever reason. So we'll see. We'll see if that ever happens. All right. Are you guys, any of you guys working on recordings or making your own, demos or anything like that? Or are you guys just noodling at home most of the time? What are you guys working on in terms of songs? Any practicing or any rehearsing or playing? My bass player just landed himself a very, very sweet Rickenbacker bass guitar. I think he's going to be bringing it this evening, and he's been hinting that he wants to play some Yes tunes. So I'm going to have to brush up on Roundabout or something like that, and try and get at least the main groove going, so I can give him a little thrill, and we can hear what that Rickenbacker sounds like when he's riffing out on those cool Yes tunes. I think he's going to be a happy camper. He's been talking about getting one for a long time. Arizona is beautiful. I've been there for a visit. It is. I know it really is. I'm sure eventually I'll probably end up there at some point. David saying Graceland. I'm sure if I end up in Memphis, I'm sure my wife's gonna want to go to Graceland. I've never been. Might as well. You don't do that very often, but it's like a pilgrimage, you know. Mazzetti says, I love to use the Suno, but it's past my ability, not tech savvy. You try it yet? No, I haven't. I haven't tried it. You're talking about AI now, right? I don't know if we. I'm a little bit reluctant to play around with AI much. I'm sure it's great in certain ways. However, I'm a little bit reluctant to jump on that AI bandwagon, because I think it's gonna cause a lot of things to change. Sometimes for the better, but I've already heard a lot of these AI songs that are being generated where they take older songs and they just remake them into in another style. Some of them are really impressive. I mean, they really sound good. You know, I can't imagine what it's going to do to the industry. I think there's a lot of people that are worried right now. And I wonder how it's going to trickle into the music production industry as well, because I have a feeling that eventually we're going to get AI plugins that are going to be able to put the spit polish on any song, any vocal performance. And, you know, I wonder how much of the original artist will be in that final recording. Like, you might be able to go in there eventually, sing a melody, maybe half-ass it, you know, and then run it through some AI algorithm and say, you know, polish it, fix the timing, fix all the flat notes, you know, all the imperfections, and give me a polished, finished product. 100% they'll be able to do that if they're not already doing that now. Actually, I just read a couple of days ago that a lot of documentary people that are basically making documentaries, music documentaries primarily, are able to now remaster old audio from, one perfect example is the Beatles. The Beatles performance when they were playing in the stadium back in the day, where you couldn't even hear them over all the girls screaming at the top of their lungs. You've seen that video probably 100 times. Well, now they can actually extract all the vocals and clear out all of the noise, all the screaming and all that kind of stuff. So you can actually start with the actual isolated vocals of the artists, remaster that, right? And then produce a polished version where you can actually hear everything. So for me, that, if you're using AI for stuff like that, that's cool. You know what I mean? Like, for example, let's say you're into old blues and you have these old recordings of the early blues guitarists, the original blues masters, and we've heard these recordings and they're not that great because the original recording wasn't that great back in the quality of the recording techniques and everything that they had back there wasn't that great. But now you can probably take all of that and run it through AI and clean it up and make it sound like it was recorded today. So for fans, out there that have had like lackluster versions of these recordings, that's pretty cool, I gotta say. If you're using it for stuff like that, that's cool. Rich says that software already exists. It's called Resing from IK Multimedia. I'm sure it's already out there. Now it'll just make it easier. So JP says, but aren't the imperfections the things that make the songs nice and unique? They are. They really are. I wouldn't necessarily want to have like a totally polished version of any song, especially if it's let's say a remaster. Keep the little nuances in there, you know what I mean? Like, that's what makes the song cool. Sometimes the little mistakes, you know what I mean? The Beatles song at the end, you hear them hitting that last chord on the piano, and as it's dying out, they're pumping up the volume to make that last note last even longer in the recording, and then you start hearing the air conditioning unit in the recording. Like, I wouldn't want them to take that out. That's cool. The squeaky bass drum pedal on the Led Zeppelin recordings. You hear the squeaky John Bonham bass drum pedals in some of the recordings. I wouldn't want them to take that out. All those little nuances, the bleeding through the headphones that you hear. The beginning of the Immigrant Song, you hear the bleeding of the previous recording through the headphones, and it creates that kind of ghost track. They never took that out. Like, I wouldn't want them to take it out. That's the cool stuff. What do you guys think about all this? Are we going down a rabbit hole with all of this? Are we? Is it the end of that the creative process, the human creative process, or are we just going to find ways to use the technology? I think we're going to eventually just use the technology, like the same way our cell phones took over. We found a way to kind of use the cell phone technology, even though some people think it's the devil's device. I don't think the cell phone itself is bad. I think maybe the fact that people get addicted to social media and use all that stuff in a wrong way. That is definitely the issue. But what can you do? We're in that stage right now. I don't think we're at the stage of turning back. Using it as a tool, I don't think is a bad thing, but maybe, relying on it and maybe, letting it take over. It's easy to cross the line eventually. Everybody would want to see how far they can take it, right? Like, in a sense, I'm thinking there's a lot of artists out there that are probably already using AI to come up with new ideas. If you get writer's block, creators block, stuff like that, most people eventually experience stuff like that. Throw an idea into AI and see what comes out. Maybe what comes out will be your next hit. Nobody needs to know. You know what I mean? Anyway, that's just my take on it. You guys might see things different. All right, what other guitar or gear related questions do you guys have? Is anything on your mind? I had a question. I was wondering how many of you have chosen to use one particular brand exclusively for different things. For example, in the early days, I used to be a big fan of Boss pedals, MXR pedals, as well as Boss pedals. And at one stage, my entire pedal collection was MXR pedals. And I didn't want, at that stage, any kind of Boss pedals in the mix, because I felt like, it didn't look like it belonged. One of these things is not like the others. Can you spot which one it is? So if you're going MXR, I wanted to stay MXR. And then eventually started mixing them. And then eventually started going into the Boss camp because they were affordable, easy to find, and reliable. And at one stage, I had quite a few Boss pedals exclusively. Now it doesn't bother me anymore. I'll mix whatever pedal on my board. It doesn't really have to be the same brand. But I'm wondering if any of you out there are kind of stuck in that state of mind where you feel it has to be. You like to see everything the same. Anybody out there like that? Rich wants to know, he has a technical question here. He says, going to learn to solder. What do you use to clean up old solder? Do solder suckers actually work? Any other solder tips would be greatly appreciated. Okay, I can help you with that a little bit. So soldering, if you're going to go soldering anything, what you need to do to get a good result is make sure you have the correct soldering iron. I've seen a lot of people, and I've done this too in the past, where you start off with a soldering iron that is not hot enough, or maybe too hot for what you're intending to do. And that'll mess things up real quick. If you have something that's not hot enough, can't achieve the right temperature, you're going to have cold solder joints, which you can tell because the solder, once it cools off, is not shiny. It's like a dull silver, not a shiny silver. You want to have a nice round shiny bead of solder. That is usually caused by a couple of things. That's usually caused by temperature not being right, not using flux. I don't know if you know what flux is, but flux is a paste that you can put on the surface of your wire or the back of your pot. And once you solder using flux, it just helps the solder to flow, and then gives you that nice round shiny ball. So if you do the soldering right, you technically don't even need to have a solder sucker. There's also wick wire, which is just a braided copper wire that will absorb once you heat it up. the extra solder that maybe is messy. But the goal is to not get to that point. So hopefully you won't need the solder sucker, but they do work. Danielle wants to know, have a preference for gig bags, plywood cases, or molded cases? Are you talking about for guitars specifically, or for guitars and pedal boards? If we're talking guitars, I tend to go in this order. I tend to go molded first, plywood second, gig bags third. The molded cases are more expensive, but they last forever, unless you melt them by storing them next to a heater or something like that. But if you're careful with them, the molded cases to me provide the best protection. They are more expensive, but they're definitely worth it. I've had molded cases that I've purchased that are 30 years old and are still fine. Plywood cases are not bad either. They're a little less expensive. Depends on who's making them. There's better versions of those plywood cases. And I would say the gig bags, like some of the gig bags that you can get today, are padded quite nicely, but I don't feel that they provide the same amount of protection. Regardless of how padded the gig bag is, if you drop the guitar, if you drop it like this and it hits the ground with the neck and the body, in those gig bags, there's going to be damage. Whereas the case, locks everything in place, and everything is not going to shift inside the case if it's a good one. So I would spend the extra cash and get them molded. Gator makes really nice one. There's a lot of companies now that make really nice. SKB has really nice cases and stuff like that. You could spend a lot of money on a case these days. Vox says he's not brand specific. I buy what I can afford, which is led me down the Behringer rabbit hole recently. And Casey Lee says, I started out with whatever effects I could find at the pawn shop. I think a lot of people start that way, Casey. And David says, I'm only brand loyal with strings. Super Slinkies exclusively for a long time. I'm pretty exclusive to my strings as well. I usually go Ernie Ball, and but I don't necessarily stick to one model, one type of Ernie Ball strings. Right now, I think most of the time I end up getting the hybrid Slinkies. I used to get those often, buy them in 3-packs or 6-packs. The hybrid Slinky are pretty good. Sometimes I'll change it up a little bit, but usually it's Ernie Ball. I've been buying Ernie Ball strings for a long time, and I'm pretty happy with them. DMAX says, I'll try any brand, but I find diminishing return price-wise in most gear after certain price points. I tend to set a cap for how much I pay for things these days. I do too, and I usually try to get something inexpensive and good first. That's my main goal, and I'm a happy camper if I can get something that sounds good and is not that expensive. That's what I aim for. If I have to buy something expensive because I have no other choice, I'll do that sometimes. But most often you can find a different brand that it gets so close and you can hardly tell the difference. Yep. So David says there's also solder wick, braided copper. Yeah, exactly. So David knows what I'm talking about here. Avoid the fumes. That's the fun part. Yeah, the flux is a game changer. Just buy the right one. Yeah, and Steven says use rosin core solder or electrical flux, not plumber's flux. That's right, not plumber's flux. It's not the same thing. There's little bottles you can get with flux, which is a liquid. The plumber's flux looks more like a paste, comes in like a white container. Not the same stuff. Make sure you don't use the thick uh, solder that you're going to be using for plumbing. You don't want to do that either. So the quality of the actual solder is important. Rosin core I think has flux already mixed into it. I think. I'm not an expert on flux or the actual solder, but I know they're not all the same. Mark is saying, any thoughts on the stadium? Which stadium? Are you talking about our stadium in Montreal? Let me know which one you're talking about here. I'm not sure if we're talking about this stadium or some other stadium. Rich says, Ernie Ball are the best. It's surprising how much strings can make a difference. Wanted to try String Joy. Yeah, I've heard about them as well. I don't know. I haven't tried them. Honestly, I usually stick to three brands. Usually it's Ernie Ball, Diodario for electrics. I used to play JHS boomers for a while. Those are the main ones that I usually play. If I'm really stuck and there's nothing available, I'll try some other brand or whatever. But I usually go back to my tried and true brands. Yep, I think a lot of people are like that when it comes to strings. I think people tend to stick with the same brand for strings. I think they also tend to stick to the same brand for pickups, largely. Like, there's Seymour Duncan, DiMarzio. Those are the ones that are the most popular aftermarket pickups. I think a lot of people will stay in those two brands. Then sometimes they'll look for something a little bit less expensive, maybe as an alternative. But I think a lot of people tend to stay with the same brands for certain things. Picks too. That's one thing that you're either in two camps. You're in the camp where you find a pick that works, and all you will use is that pick, or you will probably be like me and just try a whole bunch of different things just to see, right now, today I was playing one of these picks, which is actually made. It's made in there's animal horn, actually. This guy, same size as a Jazz, but it's got a little divot in it. Can you see it? And it's very thick. I don't know if you can see how thick it is there, but it's thick, and it plays really well. I like these because they don't have that much give. And I tried these flat picks as well recently. These guys. I showed them last week. They're pretty cool. But I noticed that I dig in quite hard. So they have cork in the middle. If you can see that. And I don't know if I have an open one here. I think I have one somewhere. I think there's one in here. Anyway, there's cork in them. And I noticed that I pushed the pick quite deep into the strings. So sometimes I actually get all the way to the cork. Like I just did that right now. So I'm actually hitting the cork. which is not good. So you have to kind of keep your finger over the cork part, so it doesn't hit it accidentally. Anyway, they're cool. I guess you can always take out the cork. I haven't tried, but they have a nice feel to them. Yeah, Daniel has a good point. He says, I would watch videos of people assembling or repairing things you are interested in. Techniques for small PC boards are different than a tube amp. Absolutely true. You can get all this information on YouTube today. You know, it's so easy. You know, just watch a whole bunch of videos. There's good tips out there on stuff like that. Next time I change bronze strings, I want to try flat wound bronze from either Dougal, Galley, or Magma, says Danielle. I did try flat wound strings at one point. I had a Sheraton, Epiphone Sheraton at one point that came with flat wound strings. I couldn't get used to them. They felt weird, especially if you bend. So they weren't for me. But yeah, it's cool to try them. Rich says, I only used Seymour Duncan's for years, but recently tried the Chopper T-Bridge and Twang King neck DiMarzio in my Telecaster, and I'm blown away. What do you like about the Chopper T specifically, Rich? Does it have more output, more bite, or is it more mellow? So Mark is talking about the Line 6 Stadium. Oh, I thought you were asking me about our stadium, Mark. Because our stadium's a disaster. That's a whole other story. I see what you mean. Okay, the Line 6 Stadium. Sorry, man. Sometimes I'm slow, especially in the mornings. The Line 6 Stadium has been making a lot of, I guess, has been getting a lot of press. A lot of people are interested in the Line 6 products. They've been around for a long time, you know. And I think it's a good product. I mean, is it pro quality? I'm still thinking it's prosumer, let's just say. But you can clearly use whatever you want, right? Live, if you're playing, like if somebody wants to play the Line 6 stadiums, yeah, they can play it for live gigs and professional shows and all that kind of stuff. I don't know if they've actually cracked, you know, the code in terms of what people want for live performances. But it seems to be, I mean, it looks a lot like the Headrush, and it has a lot of the same functionalities. I think what they probably did was they took the Headrush, the Fractal, and then put it all together and basically spun it into their version. A lot of people, I think, will end up buying one of these. They're not cheap. I would definitely wait a little bit, and maybe you get something a little bit less expensive, or you get something on maybe used. After a while, you can save yourself a ton of money on these things because they don't necessarily hold their value all that much, I would say. But I mean, it looks like they got a lot of the ins and outs right in the back. I think they took a lot of the same I'm going to say, knowledge and the same functionality that stuff like the Fractal has. They have a lot of interesting ins and outs there. And I think it's everything that you would probably need for a live scenario. It really boils down to how good and how realistic the sounds are within the unit, and how much you can actually edit them. I think the king when it comes to editing is still the Fractal. But there's a big learning curve. I will eventually try one. Right now I haven't. It's not on my radar because of the price. I'm not in the market for a new multi-effects unit. I'm perfectly happy with the one that I have. But if you're looking for something that is more like home use, it will definitely do the job. Are you thinking about getting one? Is that why you're asking? Is that on your Christmas list or something like that? Vox says he used to be a DiMarzio guy, but lately has branched out and has some Duncans and even some of the Amazon cheapies, and they all have usable tones. It's really a question of finding, what tone you're after. I don't think that. There obviously going to be some very, very iffy brands out there. If you're, coming from China or something where they're $18 a pickup or something like that, I'd be a little bit cautious of those. But if you're paying, let's say for Tone Rider pickups and stuff like that, or other brands that are relatively, maybe they don't have a big brand name following, but they can still offer some great tones for less money. It's a question of how picky you are with your pickup tone. A lot of people do love the DiMarzios. So Rich says the pickup is very punchy and meaty. It manages to be warm without being too dark. It's hard to make a single coil sound like a humbucker, but still feel like a single coil. I think so. I think I've always been the type of person that if you want a humbucker sound, go humbucker. If you want a single coil, go single coil. I don't really like the split humbucker type deals and stuff like that, because I always feel like there's a compromise somewhere. Never actually does the job. Even when you have a guitar that has a humbucker and two single coils and you're switching between them, there's always a compromise. Yeah, Rich, $2,200 for a modeler. Exactly. The Synergy Head on sale now with free modules for $1,300. Yeah, but it's not the same. It's not the same demographics, I think. As I said earlier, $1,003 is definitely better than $2,200 if you're looking at playing through a amp head into a cabinet. But there's a lot of stuff that you can't really do that you can do with a modeler. And you have so many sounds available at your disposal. It's mind-boggling. Not just amps and cabinets, but effects and all that kind of stuff. So, it's a whole different thing. Paul says the Fractal is only a couple of hundred more than the Line 6, but has a massive and killer library. This is where I think the people will draw the line in the sand, so to speak. Because if the Line 6 was, I don't know, $1,600, whatever, $1,500, that would be an easier pill to swallow. But when you're getting really close to something like the Fractal, which has become very usable in the industry, a lot of professionals use that type of unit. It's tried and true, and they're still supporting it, and they're still making updates, and there's still really, really good sounds, really good opportunities to even download sounds from other people. And like I said, the functionality and the stuff that you can do, the tweakability with it is, you would need a course just to be able to learn half of the stuff that you can do with the fractal. But that's where the power is. So I think because of that, I mean, the Stadium is more, it's more for people that don't necessarily want that kind of, let's say that kind of learning curve, perhaps, Dan says PRS is the only one who gets it close with coil splitting. You think so? I mean, I'm still not convinced about the whole coil splitting thing. I think one thing, though, I have to say about PRS recently is I think going down and making their pickups so that they only fit their guitars. They have a very unique shape to them. They're more square. I don't like that. Then you can't put them in other guitars or swap them out easily. I like the ability of being able to choose what I want and putting, if I have a PRS pickup as the bridge or the neck, I want to be able to put something else on the bridge and make it look like it belongs there. But PRS, the way they've designed their pickups now, they have a very unique shape to them. And they don't really, they stand out. I think that could be a negative. At least for me it is, anyways. Rob says if I had $2,200 for a modeler, I'd spend it on a new Johnny Marr lipstick pickup Jaguar. So Mark says, yes, I was thinking about it. Like you say, the Fractal is Pro Gear, leaning toward the Fractal FM3 Turbo, which is a good option if you don't need all of the bells and whistles with the full-fledged Fractal unit. You can save yourself a lot of money. The M3 is pretty good. It has a lot of the same sounds as the bigger brother. Rich says PRS uses coil tap, I think, where both coils are on, but second coil is not completely active, like maybe 20 to 30%. That's what I've heard too. And maybe that's why it's better. Maybe that's why it sounds a little bit better. But then it's not really full single coil, right? It's still like a hybrid type of thing. Like I say, I think for me, I like to stick to, if it's single coil, I stick to single. If it's humbucker, I stick to humbucker. Worst comes to worst, I'll do a hybrid thing where it's SSH or something like that. But generally, I tend to like guitars that are just all single coil or all humbucker. I've been like that for a long time, so. Eddie says he has the HX Stomp and probably only know how to use 5% of it. So there's no way I'm getting the Stadium. Hey, it's good that you know your limitations there, Eddie. Some people just don't want to go through that whole rabbit hole thing. I understand. This is why, even though I have the Fractal, I still am intrigued by these little units from, Nuex and More and all these other companies, because they're refreshing in their simplicity sometimes. There's just basic stuff, and that's enough for like 90% of the things that you need to do. If you can get a good sound, you can get to them quickly, you can turn things on and off easily. That's all you need. That's one of the things that I dislike about the Fractal, though. If you're using it with software to edit your patches, it's not that bad. But God forbid you want to edit a patch when you're playing and you want to do it quickly. The interface is a nightmare for that. And I think if they come out with a new version of this Fractal where they make it easy to edit your patches and save your patches on the fly, they'll sell a billion of them. I'm telling you, because that's the main disadvantage. So I don't know if you heard, but Carlos Santana is still going strong. He's announced 2026 tour dates now, and he's still going strong. I think most of them will be in Vegas, House of Blues, Mandalay Bay, but he's still there. Will he be coming to Canada? That I don't think so. I don't see any kind of announcements for him coming to Canada. I think he's staying in the warmer places: North Carolina, Florida, Texas, L.A., Vegas, all those places. He's not dumb. He doesn't want to come here when it's cold. I don't blame him either. I've seen him in concert, and you got to see him at least once. Carlos says, he's been around for a long time, and he's definitely worth seeing at least once. I speaking of modelers and all this kind of stuff, have you guys heard or seen recently the barefaced FRFR cabinet that they've come out with? This company's in Europe, so you don't really see them in the US all that much, but they have a really unique FR speaker that I like. I've seen it, and it seems really nicely built. It looks like a cabinet that is made specifically for a guitar. So it's not like the Headrush stuff that looks like a monitor wedge. And it's open back, and it has a nice speaker in the center of it and everything. It's not cheap. It's 749 euros, I think it is. So it's pretty expensive, but it sounds really, really good. And that's always been sort of the Achilles heel of modelers, is if you go play live somewhere, how do you get the sound to sound good? Generally, you would want to come play through an FR speaker. So a lot of people, what they'll do is they'll get a budget FR speaker, and then sometimes be disappointed, So I've tried two different types of FR speakers, and I get kind of the same results from both of them. I think if you're gonna do the fractal thing or the multi-effects thing, you're probably better off going through directly to the mixer front of house and tailor your sound that way. Rich says he loves his mini humbuckers. They have their own thing going. Yeah, there's a lot of people that do like the minis. That's definitely a different flavor. It's almost like they're kind of in between the P90s. The minis and the P90s are kind of competing a little bit. They are expensive, DMAC, but they all are. I mean, even if you go with a Friedman makes them too. He makes his own version, also very expensive. There's not that many options when it comes to those type of speakers, so it's like you're kind of stuck, For Black Friday, I'm getting everybody tires for my car. Well, you do need good tires, especially in wintertime. I had to do the same. It wasn't fun, let me tell you. And expensive. Freaking tires they're not giving them away. All right, guys, if we don't have any more questions for today, I think we're going to wrap it up. I've been yapping for an hour and a half. We'll do the poll question real quick before we wrap it up. If you don't mind possibly giving a thumbs up on the way out, that would help as well. If you have any last questions, please let me know. But I'm just going to go to the poll question here real quick. and see who's taken the opportunity to answer that poll question. And the poll question was tied into the Dragon Telecaster today. So let's see here. Where is the poll question? All right, here we go. A few of you have answered, not as many as usual, just because I put it a little bit too late. Should have put it a little earlier. What fascinates you most about Jimmy Page's Dragon Telecaster? 33%, actually 38% of you said its role in the early Led Zeppelin recordings. Then 33 said the psychedelic hand-painted dragon artwork. 29% of you said the mystery of what ultimately happened to the guitar. Oh, you don't know? Maybe some of you guys don't know what happened to the guitar. I can tell you that real quick. And then 0 said the mirrored Zoso error mod he added later. So nobody likes that one. I'm not the only one. So I'll tell you what happened to that guitar. It's funny because I thought most of you, well, many of you probably already know what the answer is to that question. What happened to the guitar was eventually Jimmy Page gave the guitar to a guitar tech to, I guess, I don't know, do some work on it. The tech, who probably got shot or fired after doing this, refinished the guitar. He didn't realize that the guitar was hand-painted by Jimmy himself, and he took it upon himself to return the guitar to almost stock. So he sanded off all of the dragon painting on it, refinished the guitar, and basically ruined it. And I don't know what happened when he gave it back to Jimmy, but I would have loved to see his face or his reaction. He probably tore him a new one because it basically ruined the guitar. And he basically didn't play that guitar for a very, very long time. And then eventually had someone remake the guitar for him, basically turn it back into a dragon. Maybe through pictures or what, I don't know. This was before Fender got involved. So basically that iconic guitar was gone. So if you do see one now, it's a remake, a rebuild. So it's a sad story, really. The Boss Katana allows you to plug in directly to the power amp. Would this be similar to an FR speaker? Not the same. The thing about the FR speakers is because it's full frequency flat response. So it covers all the frequency range and it gives you a flat, it's supposed to give you a flat, uncolored response. So what you program in your unit is what you should hear. No coloration. If you go into any kind of amplifier cabinet or speaker, it's obviously going to color your sound in one way or another. You might still like it, but it won't be the same results. Eddie says, I thought it was hand-painted by a 5-year-old. Dan Steely says, Jimmy Page paints like a 2-year-old with a broken hand. Hey man, you don't know what kind of, under what influence Jimmy Page was when he was actually doing the painting, right? Call it abstract. A lot of people don't even see the dragon in there. When they look at it, they're like, what dragon? I don't see a dragon. What are you talking about? All right. All right, guys, that's it for today. I'm going to be logging off. It was a pleasure speaking to you guys. We'll be back again, and we'll be doing the Addicted to Gear thing on Sunday, and I'll let you know ahead of time so you can tune in if you wish. In the meantime, check out some of my last videos. Also, I almost forgot, I'm using these headphones. These are the Joyo headphones that I reviewed in my last video. I know you guys, if you need headphones for recording, I'm telling you, grab these during Black Friday. They're 37 bucks US. These things are crazy. I've compared these to other more expensive headphones that I've had in the past that were made by well-known companies that were, they make them specifically for recording purposes. These are just as good. At 37 bucks, I couldn't believe it. So do yourself a favor. If you're in the market for decent quality headphones, actually not decent, very good quality headphones at a very reasonable price, I don't think you can beat this deal. I'm just saying. All right, guys, that's it. Take care. Have a great week ahead of you. Be productive. Do all that great stuff. And best of all, play some music because it's cheaper than therapy. All right, guys, I'll see you soon.